It's Thursday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever. The only podcast, well, it's the only movie podcast, but it's also the only podcast that offers objective, hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, he hates every APCs from Chimpan A to Chimpanzee. It's Anthony James.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Anthony, how you doing?
Doing very well. How about you?
I'm very well, thank you. Once again, there is a reason for that intro. It's not just plucked out. I do also appreciate that I've broken from tradition slightly with that intro and not quoted a movie, but it'll make sense. Just trust me, all right, listeners? Just trust me. So we're doing a movie diary this week where we talk about all the movies we've seen since the last time we did one of these, which is only a week, but, you know, maybe we've seen loads of movies.
Maybe. Maybe. One of us has. The other one has seen enough to talk about.
One of the movies that one of us has seen this week is going to merit a fair bit of discussion. I'm going to say that now.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, please subscribe to us on YouTube if you're not already, on the Culture Cave or on podcasting apps. We're the best movie podcast ever, if that is your preferred medium of consumption. Give the video a like, get involved in the comments, let us know what you have been watching this week and what you thought of the movies that we're about to discuss. But without further ado, I say let's talk about some movies.
Let's do it.
Cinema! I didn't say movies this week. All will become clear shortly, alright?
Oh.
We're here to talk about...
A bit more highbrow.
Kino. The cinematic art form. And what better place to start? Well, you know, when I think cinema... as I'm sure is the case with many people, the first name that comes to mind is, of course, Zack Snyder. And... And
That's
I don't know if you've heard. I was going to say, I don't know if you've heard or not, Anthony, but there's a little movie's been I guess re-released, you might say, in the past week, and that is Zack Snyder's Snyder's The Justice League 2021. It's because I wrote it down in my notes as Justice League - the Snyder Cut, which is not what it's called. It's called Zack Snyder's The Justice League, just to catch me out.
Just to differentiate from the other one that he directed 4 years ago.
That's the one from 2018. I think it was 2018 it came out.
2017
is
I think it was,
probably one of the rare cases of a movie that has two directors disavowing any responsibility for it. Because I doubt Whedon wants anything to do with it either. But yes, Zack Snyder's The Justice League. I did watch it. We're going to start with that because it's the elephant in the room, or indeed the cyborg in the room, and we can't move past it, so we're going to have to go through it. So you've seen.
Did you watch the original in preparation of this?
No, I thought about doing a double header for this very podcast, but I watched this one first, and then I was like, I haven't got another one of those in me. To be honest, I have seen the original, although it's been several years.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen it. Yeah.
So
wasn't a fan.
No, okay, so like a little bit of preamble to this. I didn't like the original movie. I thought it was tonally all over the place, but which we'll get into in a second as to how like Snyder addresses that. But I think I was skeptical about the Snyder Cut coming into this because, well, for multiple reasons. One is that I think it's not really the film's fault, but I think this kind of like fandom that has grown up around the idea of the Snyder Cut is kind of indulging some of the most kind of toxic aspects of like internet fandom. I think it's kind of, you know, allowing people's imaginations to run riot as to what this film might be, and kind of perpetuates these ideas of, I don't know, Joss Whedon coming in and ruining this movie or something. Which I don't particularly enjoy. But also, I think from a purely kind of technical perspective, my issues with Whedon's version of the film were not things that you can fix by like recutting and adding extra footage in. For the most part, you know, there were action scenes were confusingly shot. The characterization of Batman I thought was a huge misstep, and we'll get into all of that. But I'll say this now: I don't think Zack Snyder fixed a lot of it. So, so first off, plot. The movie has one, and I'll lay it out for those of you who haven't seen it. There's these guys called they're the superheroes, right? We all know what superheroes are. there are things on Earth called mother boxes. Oh wait, I mean Infinity Stones. No, they're called mother boxes in this. And if you put them all together, they like terraform the planet and destroy it. It's the same plot as like I'm not like raking this movie over the coals for not having an original plot, because like Avengers didn't invent the MacGuffins that destroy the world thing either, but it's just, you know, it's so similar.
What did you say they were called? Rocks of Infinity? What were they called?
In the Avengers, they're the Infinity Stones. In this,
yeah,
they are called mother boxes. I don't know. We can't spend too long dwelling on that. It's a thing.
Infinity Stones sounds better.
Yeah, when you put the boxes together, bad stuff happens. And there's a dude called Steppenwolf, played by the criminally underused Kieran Hines, who he's in this movie and the original so little that I didn't even realise it was Kieran Hines until I went and looked up the IMDb page. He wants to get them together because he's kind of working for the big bad guy Darkseid. He's like terraforming all these planets, so Darkseid, or as you may already know him, Thanos, can expand his galactic empire, etc., etc. Batman needs to get a group of heroes together to save him. He gets Cyborg, The Flash, Wonder Woman. I think I'm probably missing one.
Superman eventually.
Well, Superman eventually, yeah. Gets them together. And
Cyborg. Do you say Cyborg?
Yeah, Cyborg, The Flash,
Batman,
Wonder Woman, Batman. I feel like there's another one. No, I think I'm just making that up.
Joker.
We'll get into that. Fucking hell. He gets the group together. They go and fight Steppenwolf.
Aquaman.
Did I say? Yeah, Aquaman. That's the one.
Yeah, you didn't say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good old Aquaman. Okay, so that's the plot. It's basically the same thing as the Joss Whedon movie. Things that have changed, or that I noticed had changed, and I say this as someone who hadn't seen the Whedon movie for a few years, so it was only really the obvious stuff that struck me. Number one, with a bullet, Zack Snyder changed the aspect ratio. He puts it in 4:3, which I'm not against things being in a different aspect ratio. There are definitely reasons to do it. I think most recently the Lighthouse used I can't actually remember the aspect ratio the Lighthouse used. It wasn't 4:3.
Yeah, and I like that actually.
But I think that offered a very kind of claustrophobic view of things, and kind of it accentuated the verticality of the lighthouse itself, which I felt like thematically really worked. I think here I don't think Snyder's got the chops to compose a scene to take advantage of this. I think his kind of motivation is to present these heroes as these like towering figures that dominate the entire screen, but the effect for the most part is that it just makes me feel like half the screen has been cut off on the sides. It's like this shot feels like I feel like I'm watching this on an old television.
The shots weren't composed for that originally, so it's literally him just trying, how do we make this arty? Well,
yeah, and there's interstitial cards with like quotes from it's like part one and then a quote from the upcoming part, which I did enjoy, but it is also a bit like, come on, dude. like this is like an episode of Frasier that we're watching here.
That's interesting, actually. We're off a little bit off topic here, but we sort of are on topic. Something that I noticed when I moved to the UK and Ireland, actually, they do it too, in both sets of TV. And people from other places in the world might not know this, but in an hour-long episode of TV of something in the UK on English television, they usually have an ad break every 15 minutes. So there'll be 4 parts to the hour-long show.
Yeah.
Right, so you just reminded me of this. When I came from Australia, I thought it was so strange because literally that they'll say in between, they'll say, coming up, part 2. Like they'll call each quarter of the show part 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, okay. That
really threw me off.
That's a very. I feel like that's a. Yeah, it's a bit of a throwback, that, because they definitely did used to do it. You know, if you were watching like
E4 or something.
Yeah. Or even something with like a narrative. I feel like they would have, you're watching like the Dukes of Hazzard in the UK in like the 70s or something. Mm-hmm. They would have called it part 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they kind of did away with that as we move more towards prestige television. They're like, no, we don't split things into parts.
Oh yeah, they were still doing it with Smallville. I'll just tell you that, and also Lost. They did it with that as well.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So, I mean, Vernon.
But that's what Zack Snyder chose to do with this.
Yes, he did. He split it down into parts and gave each part a quote, like it was an episode of Frasier. So he's basically doubled the length of this movie. It's just shy of 4 hours long, And boy,
How is that
howdy,
possible?
do you feel every minute of that? I'll say this now because there's gonna be a lot of me criticizing this movie. I think what he has made is better than the theatrical release. But it's only marginally so, and it's still 4 hours of movie when it didn't really need to be, I don't think. And as a supposed fan of cinema, I don't know how I'm going to be able to look my grandchildren in the eye and tell them that I've never seen Gone with the Wind, but I managed to set aside 4 hours to watch the fucking Zack Snyder Justice League.
That's a very good point. Heaven's Gate, never seen it.
Yeah, it's too long, but I sat down to watch this one afternoon because apparently I'm an idiot with no sense of taste. And it put me back. I've mentioned it before on this podcast, I believe, but it put me back in mind of a great bit in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, where they talk about how their episodes that they'd shot were running so short that they had to use slow-mo literally anywhere that they possibly could. And there is so much goddamn slow motion in this movie. It's like, you could have saved me 45 minutes just by taking out most of the slow-mo time.
That's Zack Snyder for you. Was he doing the old style of like this? The zoom in like he did in 300? Was he doing a lot of that?
He doesn't really do the zoom on the sort of panoramic shot of Leonidas.
It sort of has to be shot for that, doesn't it? Like it would have to be shot for that.
I think doing that is because I think they had to actually do that on like 2 different cameras running at different shutter speeds and then kind of composite them together, which is really difficult to do. But I mean, there's loads of like slow motion violence, a lot of blood. Zack Snyder's a big fan of blood. Actually, there's some confusing blood. Like there's a bit where Steppenwolf is like, so he's basically going around trying to get the Infinity Stones. Mother boxes. And he's fighting like the Atlanteans have one. I think they're Amazonians. Wonder Woman's gang have one, and the Humanity have one. And it's actually really funny. If that's reminded you of Lord of the Rings, you're not wrong, because it reminded Zack Snyder of Lord of the Rings as well. And there's literally a battle sequence in the middle of this movie that might as well have had Galadriel talking over the top of it about the battle for the One Ring, because it's literally the armies of Man, Atlantis, and Amazonia fighting in Mount Doom against Darkseid and his army to reclaim the Mother Boxes. And it looks exactly like the opening of Fellowship of the Ring. But yeah, so there's a bit talking about the blood. There's a bit where like Steppenwolf is like fighting the Atlanteans, and he gets some generic Atlantean who's he's getting he needs to get information from this Atlantean. He's torturing him, and he chucks him against a rock, and like the guy hits the rock, and there's a huge blood spray on the rock behind him. But then he walks up to him and begins like continuing to interrogate the guy, and it's like, have you seen the amount of blood that's on that rock? Like, how is this guy still functional as a human being? And it feels like they wanted it to be like, right, that's the end of that sentence. Darth Vader chokes out guys, Steppenwolf brains them against rocks, but then they're like, shit, he needed to say some more stuff in this scene, so we're gonna pretend that didn't happen. But yeah, so there's a lot of blood. I won't spoil who it is, but there's a bit where a character has already very clearly been beaten, and Wonder Woman cuts their head off in slow motion for no reason. But it's still
cool.
The same. Yeah, it is cool. It is cool. Head beheadings are cool. It's just I think there's a lot of missteps in this movie that were never going to be fixed by Zack Snyder here. So I think there's stuff like the underwater sections, particularly having come from watching Aquaman last week. It is remarkable how much muddier and darker and hard to pass the underwater sections are in this. Like, they're really, really ugly actually in some places, and there are just some action.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's like when you compare it to Aquaman, which literally looks like it could be a live action remake of The Little Mermaid. Which is not a bad thing. I enjoyed that it was colourful. This is just dark and muddy and horrible, and I think a lot of the action scenes are still really confusingly shot. It's just kind of competency problems in a lot of it, in terms of like visually communicating what's actually happening in a scene and sort of maintaining a sense of motion between cuts. And probably my biggest problem with both versions, and it's maintained in this, is that like Batman is characterized as like boring man with gun, which I don't hate Affleck's performance. I think there's he finds something interesting in his performance as a kind of very world weary, very kind of quiet Batman. But I also think I can't escape the feeling that Snyder was wrestling with how to make Batman real, man. Like, you know, you've got Superman and Wonder Woman and all these like superpowered heroes, and like, how do we make him work in this team with all these superheroes? And when you compare it to like the Avengers, which, you know, it's not. I don't want to continuously compare it to the Avengers, but the comparison is there for all to see. You look at someone like Captain America, who is not really a superhero. Like the super soldier serum, in theory, pushes him to the limits of what a human can do. But he's still got like fucking Thor and the Hulk on his team. Like in theory, or in reality, Captain America should be useless on that team. Like Thor and the Hulk would just run off doing everything, and Captain America would be like, "Good going, guys." But they don't. They don't do that because, and the same goes for Black Widow as well. But they don't do that because it's no fun. We just pretend that they're all on level footing, and you know, we have fun in our adventure movie. And I feel like in this, like Zack Snyder was so wrapped up in being like, we got to make him work. How do we do this? Rather than just letting him be a cool ninja with gadgets and crime fighting abilities. And the answer was, we give him loads of guns, which is not only really dumb, but also kind of betrays the character a little bit because he's just constantly killing people. Like the Batmobile is covered in guns in this movie.
Yeah. Like the Batman is not a soldier, you know. He's one of his one of his main rules is that he doesn't kill people.
Yeah, that's literally like the core of his relationship with the Joker is he can't kill him because it goes against his creed. So he has to find a way to kind of, you know, not break his rule while also stopping the Joker from murdering, you know, thousands of innocent people. So if he's just like, I'm just gonna kill people, like, we'll just shoot the Joker then for a start.
But also, there's the clear parallels between Batman and Iron Man. Obviously, the two rich, you know, they're basically the equivalents in the world.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
With the gadgets and, you know, the rich sort of never-ending money. But the thing is, Tony Stark as Iron Man, you know, never has a gun in his hand. You know,
well, I mean,
he does blast, you know, with his things, but he actually creates a suit which makes him a superhuman.
Yeah.
Whereas Batman in this is just, you know, taking a gun and just being like a gangster.
He literally like punches two guys in the whole movie. I was like watching, like, God, Batman doesn't do any martial arts in this. He's just like, there's like one guy he punches, and like literally through the climax of the whole movie, he's just running around with a gun shooting things. It's like that's. You might as well just make this Deadshot or something. There's no point in this character being Batman. So that I still think is a massive misstep. I think talking about Ciarán Hinds being criminally underused, Amy Adams is still criminally underused in this. Like, she deserves so much better. I mean, like, you and I are both big fans of The Master, where she, you know, turns in an absolutely brilliant performance. And to see her relegated to, you know, a character who gets, I think, like 2 scenes with speaking parts in this is just criminal. And then, you know, I think structurally, Snyder has reordered this to make more sense. I think it flows a lot better, even if it does drag massively because of how long it is. And I think Snyder made a good choice by removing pretty much all of the Joss Whedon one-liners because they just do not work tonally. So the bit where like Batman is trying to recruit Aquaman to his team and makes a joke about him talking to fish is no longer in there. And pretty much there are pretty much no jokes in this movie. Like Ezra Miller as the Flash and Jason Momoa get a little bit, but the rest of it is very straight-laced, and I think that probably does work because, you know, the tone of this movie
takes itself very seriously.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, I think that's true of a lot of Zack Snyder's movies. Like, I don't think he is particularly good at having any sense of levity in his movies.
Right, Konrad. It sounds to me, now tell me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds to me that like you don't think that this film is the 123rd best film ever.
No, I would say I could probably, if you gave me a pen and paper, I think I could name you at least 123 movies that are better than Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Because for any listeners who didn't know, when we're recording this on Monday the 22nd of March 2021, Zack Snyder's Justice League is currently sitting at 123 on IMDb's top 250 films. It's better than Heat. It's better than LA Confidential. It's better than Die Hard. It's better than Batman Begins. It's better than Monty Python and the Holy Grail, apparently.
Yep. That is...
it's just...
That, I mean, I've gone on record
better than There
times.
Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood, it's better than, apparently.
I've gone on record many times of like raging against the IMDb rating system, but
these are all IMDb rating systems. So like we rage against the system, but at the same time we're comparing them within the system. Yeah. You know what I mean? The same people voted on this, that voted on, the same crowd. You know what I mean?
That's true. Well, okay, I guess like the IMDb's top 250 films ever has a worthy entrance. Just don't watch it at the same weekend that you watch Lawrence of Arabia, because you will be tired, frankly, after those movies. I mean, I don't hate this movie. I don't, and I can understand why some people would really like it. I can't. I don't think I could listen to anyone seriously if they tried to tell me that this was like a 5-star movie. It's just not. It's yeah. There's stuff to enjoy here. If you're really into the DC superheroes, yeah, there's probably stuff that you'll enjoy. Batman, turning up in his it's not a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but he's turning up in his black suit and beating the shit out of Steppenwolf is quite cool. But it's just like it's so overblown, and it has such a sense of self-importance that really rubs me the wrong way, to be honest, which a lot of Snyder movies do. I will
say, Konrad, that
excuse me,
you might not trust IMDb, and it's currently sitting at an 8.4 on IMDb out of 10, which is actually very, very conservative compared to Rotten Tomatoes audience score 96%.
Oh yeah, the people are loving it.
Yeah, people are loving it.
Like this, we're going to go off track slightly a bit here, but like, there's something to be said for, and I like The Rock a lot, but I'm going to use him as an example here. There has been a worrying trend towards film critic reviews being dismissed as like, oh, the elite didn't like it, but the people, they're not speaking for the people. Like, the people really enjoy it. And I remember when Baywatch came out, and The Rock was like, the fans are loving it, but the critics hate it. Shows what they know. And it's like, okay, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like this fucking particularly with something like Baywatch. Like, is that really the hill you want to die on, Dwayne? Like, make good movies, and then perhaps you'll get good critic reviews. But yeah,
the thing is, Konrad, I saw this coming. Like, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I said to Konrad just before we started recording, I said, I tell you what, if J.J. Abrams re-released his own cut of the 9th Star Wars film, and it was just him sitting on the toilet for 2 hours, it would get 9 out of 10 on IMDb, 100%, because everyone just gets in their own mind about the J.J. cut. The Zack Snyder cut. It must be better. It has to be better. And fine, if they enjoyed it, it's fine. But in my opinion, when you go into a film with so much expectation, it's strange to me that it's meeting the expectation for these people.
Yeah, but I think I don't necessarily want to put words in other people's mouths, but I think when I was talking about it, like, appealing to the worst aspects of internet fandom, those the people who are like that deeply rooted in it, like, their opinions of these kind of things go in one of two directions. Like, everything is either the best thing ever or the worst thing ever, and clearly they've decided which way they fall on it. I will also say as well, like, J.J. Abrams sitting on the toilet for 2 hours would probably be a better movie than Rise of Skywalker. So, like,
well, at least we got to see a yellow lightsaber on screen. It'd be cool if he just took one of them out while on the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, again, at least it would be consistent, like maybe time for an arc. But anyway, that is Zack Snyder's the Justice League. I don't really have too much more to say on it than that. I think if you're absolutely desperate for superhero stuff, go and watch WandaVision, and then once you've watched all of WandaVision, go and watch the Avengers movies again.
The Falcon
and Soldier's out as well. I haven't watched any of that, but presumably that's better than this.
I've seen the first episode. Actually, I did enjoy it. Okay, so excellent. Well, going on from there, then we're going to move and stay in the superhero realm. So you guys know that I'm rewatching the MCU films with my wife because she's never seen them all. She has seen Thor Ragnarok, which is the third one, the Taika Waititi one.
Yeah.
But she's never seen the original Thor. Okay. Now, I remember telling her that when Taika Waititi made Thor Ragnarok, we both loved Taika Waititi, and when we watched Thor Ragnarok, we both loved that film, and it was hilarious, and he managed to bring his spin to it, and it was just great. I told her that the original Thor and the second one weren't the same style of film, didn't have the same attitude.
No.
It was very, very different. But we never discussed then what she would have thought of it. She actually very much enjoyed it, and I, to be honest with you, I enjoyed it too. I think out of the first three, I'm not counting the Hulk, out of the first three MCU films, I I think that it is the weakest of the three. I think Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2 are better than it.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree there. But I just really love the balls on Marvel here. So they have like sort of a Batman style, superhero in Iron Man, as we talked about earlier, where he's like sort of this rich, egotistical guy, and he has all these gadgets, and it's basically based on Earth, and it's like sort of a science fiction.
Yeah.
And then in their third film, they're like, right, we want to make this like a crazy universe where everyone can come into it. It's going to be just like the comics, like something that we haven't really seen in film before.
Yeah.
It's going to be just like the comics. Let's go straight up fantasy. We're going to have Thor, and it's going to be Asgard, and we're going to have the frost giants in there. And it literally is... it is actually just like a Lord of the Rings style thing too.
Yeah. Like it definitely nails that fantasy aesthetic, I think.
Yeah, and I love the shift. Like if I'm viewing it like a big series of films now, I'm viewing it like the MCU. I'm not watching the Thor films. I'm watching all of the Marvel films, and I just love the shift into this. I think setting Thor in like I'm not sure in the comics. People can tell me in the comments, but setting Thor in New Mexico, like completely out of his element to me, really worked. Worked.
I think that's one of the reasons why. Like, I think I really like the first Thor movie, and I think there's two things I love about it. First is that they got fucking Kenneth Branagh to direct it, which it's just like I love the idea that like we're doing third movie in the MCU. We kind of made our bed with like the Jon Favreau stuff with Iron Man 1 and 2. Who can we get to direct this? How about we get Kenneth Branagh and we put fucking Anthony Hopkins in this movie? It's just like prestige British actors all over the place.
Anthony Hopkins was fantastic.
He is. And then you do what is essentially like a fish out of water comedy almost for a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like you get all the cool fantasy Asgard stuff, but then you just take Thor and put him in New Mexico, and it's like, now it's a comedy for 40 minutes, and I think it really works. And I think this is actually the moment for me as well where Chris Hemsworth started to prove he had chops as a comedic actor, which they definitely leaned into later on in the MCU. I think up until this point, he was seen as I think definitely a leading man, but a leading man who was maybe a limited actor, and I think this proved that that's not the case.
Yeah, like he has so many good little jokes. Like even whenever you take someone who's like a fish out of water, but also like takes himself so seriously, and then like the bit where he's drinking a coffee and he slams the mug on the ground and goes another. It's just absolutely hilarious. But I love the way he plays as well, because when the women in Stellan Skarsgård are like, "What's going on? Like, why are you doing that?" He's like, I didn't mean any harm by it, He's like, he never breaks like the coolness,
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. Because I'm watching them all together as well, I noticed the tie-in with what is his name, Coulson from
Agent Coulson,
from Shield, and I like that Thor calls him son of Cole. Son of Cole.
Sure, yeah.
I thought it was a really nice touch having Stellan Skarsgård in it.
Always great to see Stellan Skarsgård turn up in anything.
Yeah, having the roots back into the Scandinavian myths and legends was great, and having like just the idea in this world where Thor eventually becomes like a superhero in the earthly realm. It's so funny that like he's actually also is the god from Scandinavian mythology.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny in that regard.
I think this is really the only time they talk about that. It's just like don't think too hard about it, guys. Like he was Asgard's a real place. They're the gods of the Norse, but they're also superheroes. Don't worry about it.
But later on as well, like later on, way down the road, as we know, like Asgard eventually, like New Asgard or whatever, it's on Earth. It's like
it's just in like Finland somewhere.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It's a bit of a shame that we didn't see more of Natalie Portman later on in the thing. But I do think there's a rumor that she is coming back to play Thor. Like not Thor, obviously, but I think she's going to be wielding Mjolnir.
Okay.
In the fourth film.
I never looked up what actually happened with that, whether she just said she didn't want to do any more, or whether it was a conflict with schedules or something like that. But this movie is kind of full of really good actors. I mean,
Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Hiddleston is great in it as well, and like love or hate her, like Kat Dennings can definitely do the thing that she does in this movie and in later stuff like WandaVision as well. She can do that very well. So yeah, like a really, really strong cast, I think, and I think when you go from like Iron Man to Thor, and then after Thor 2, which I presume you'll probably get to either next week or sometime soon, go to Captain America, which is literally like a World War II movie with some sort of action adventure stuff thrown in.
Yeah.
It is quite striking how diverse they managed to make those early Marvel movies feel, which I think it's telling. As someone who wasn't like, I like the good Marvel movies, I do really like, but I definitely got a bit fatigued with them, and I do felt that they started to be a bit kind of homogenized in the middle there. But these early ones are very distinct, I think.
Oh yeah, very much so, and like because the worlds haven't melded yet. Maybe after the first Avengers, it starts to sort of change a bit.
Yeah.
But like, put it this way, I think the biggest praise I can give the film is in this early stage of this universe that they were creating, they couldn't afford a stumble. You know,
No, that's true.
I'm not going to count the Hulk. They couldn't afford a stumble, and they didn't stumble. It's a good film. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to watching Thor 2, because Thor 2 I didn't remember very liking as much. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
That's one of the ones I've not seen. Thor 2, the Dark World.
Dark World, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to watching it just to get my sort of thoughts in order about it. I do remember liking it, but I don't remember where I definitely I didn't like it as much as the first one, but I can't remember where I would have fallen overall. Yeah. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. I think
broadly it's not as fondly remembered as a lot of the other ones. Certainly not from Phase 1. I don't actually know when Phase 1 ended. Did it end with the first Avengers movie, I'm guessing?
Yeah, okay. I think so, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah.
Cool.
So there you go. That's Thor. So I'll keep you up. Obviously, the next one's Captain America. So we'll let you know what we think.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to continue down this path with you on your MCU rewatch, because there's some good movies in there. And I'm actually going to stick in the Disney wheelhouse for this next one. I didn't realize Disney owned this, and was actually taken aback. I was looking for movies to watch, and I was like, oh, you know what, I've got Disney Plus at the moment because I watched Raya and the Last Dragon last week. I'll have a look at what's on Disney Plus, and wouldn't you know it, fucking Conan the Barbarian from 1982 is on there, because Fox had the international distribution rights to this, and when Disney bought Fox, apparently Disney now have the international distribution rights for it. So and he is technically, I believe, in... It's either DC or Marvel. It's one of those two kind of comic universes. Conan is in it. I think it's Marvel that Conan, because he's Dark Horse. I'm not sure. Someone in the comments will have to correct me on that. But he technically could show up in an MCU film at some point. So we'll see what happens with that.
But Jason Momoa is him and Aquaman. So how would they do that?
Well, that would only become a problem if they did a crossover between the Justice League and the Avengers, because which could possibly happen. Disney can.
I really hope it doesn't. DC need to get their act in order before anything like that happens.
I mean, just Disney do what they did with Fox and Spider-Man. Be like, just give it to us, we'll source it. All right.
Yeah. Well, that's why they didn't make any more Hulk films standalone, because the company that owns the Hulk rights didn't do that with them like they did with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Although Sony doesn't own the rights to Hulk, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I bet they regret that now, because
100%
could have made some money out of that one. But yeah, so 1982's Conan the Barbarian. This movie rules, frankly. It's one of my favorite movies, or was one of my favorite movies as a kid. It's cheesy as hell. It's directed by John Milius, stars Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow. It's just great sword and sorcery epic. It's based on the, I think, novels by Robert E. Howard, which I've never read any of them, but it's, when you think of your like kind of prototypical muscled barbarian who just wanders around in a loincloth fucking shit up, this is what you think of. And everything about this movie is fantastic. Like, it's incredibly gory. It's got a great score by, I've got his name down here, Basil Polidouris, which is one of the more striking movie scores I've ever heard. It's like instantly recognizable, and basically it tells the story of Conan, who is a young kid in like some snowy village somewhere. Village gets raided by a warlord played by James Earl Jones. His parents are killed. He's sold into slavery. He's like trained in fighting pits, and basically is raised as a living weapon. Gets his freedom, and then goes to get revenge on the warlord who killed his family, who is now kind of a cult leader. and you've got giant snakes, you've got beheadings, you've got orgies, you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger punching camels. It's all here.
And what if you were to say, like, is it based in a sort of modified realm of history, or is it just its own world?
No, so I think it is technically. I think very loosely it's on Earth, so it's so actually this is one of the things that made me laugh about it, because I always forget this happens. But so it's set in this kind of fictional era, tens of thousands of years before, like, the ancient civilizations of Earth, so like the ancient Egyptians and stuff like that. So it's not even called Earth, it's called, I can't remember what it's called something else. But the film literally opens with a Friedrich Nietzsche quote, which it's just so good. It doesn't make any sense in the context of the movie, and it is that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger, which is like, okay, that's a good quote, I guess, for the sense.
Yeah.
For
There's going to be killing in this movie.
It's just like, what are you like? Is Conan the Barbarian a big fan of German philosophers from the 18th century or 19th century? But so it is Earth technically, but it might as well not be, and it's kind of just plucking little bits of kind of cult. If you were being uncharitable, you could call it kind of cultural appropriation. You've got a character who's like a Mongol. You've got some kind of Orientalism that's picked out for certain characters as well. But it all meshes really beautifully, and it just creates like this really kind of distinct, vibrant fantasy setting that I absolutely love. And it's kind of, there aren't any great performances in it. Schwarzenegger is he's kind of bad to average most of the time, but it doesn't really matter because it's not about the performances. Like James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow kind of steal the show as the hammiest characters you could possibly hope to meet. So James Earl Jones's character is this guy called, I think he's called Thulsa Doom, and he's basically just like Darth Vader. Like he sounds like he sounds like James Earl Jones. That's what he's going to sound like. But, he's got his American accent. He's not trying to do a fancy accent. He has one of the worst haircuts of any character I've ever seen in a movie, because it's clear that I assume it has to be part like extensions or a wig, because it's basically like, for the audio listeners, it's like short hair in the center and then long on the sides. So it looks like he refused to wear a full wig, and instead they just like glued hair extensions to the side of his head.
Oh jeez.
But yeah, it's such a good movie. It's just a rip roaring good time, and I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Okay, well, it's actually, I've never ventured into the Conan the Barbarian films at all. I probably should.
Well, it came up last week actually. One of our listeners mentioned it in the comments, because obviously Jason Momoa was in the remake, which was terrible. And to be honest, the sequel with Conan the Destroyer is not very good either. But this is. I'd love them to do Conan justice, because it's such a distinct setting, and this movie is so much fun.
Okay. I'm interested to see some early sort of pre-Terminator stuff. Is this pre-Terminator?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it is. This one. I think this one of his first ones, isn't it?
It's 82. I think Terminator was 84. Let me check. IMDb. They know what. 1984, yeah. Terminator was 1984, so this was 2 years before 2 years before the Terminator. So he was a relatively well-known quantity at this point, but I mean, I think he was still kind of finding his footing. So he was.
Yeah, I think this was his big break. The Conan the Barbarian. I think this was his big break, as far as I remember. So yeah, I'd like to watch it to see who he was before the Terminator, because obviously after the Terminator came out, that's who he was. From then on. Yeah, no,
this is definitely one of his more distinct roles, I will say, because as you say, once he did Terminator, he was kind of like, I'm just going to be like Austrian action man now, and that's gonna do me for the next 20 years.
Yeah, which is fine. I like a lot of his films. True Lies is a great one. I love The Sixth Day. I love that one too.
You're one of the only people who likes The Sixth Day, I think.
Oh, come on. The reveal of the... I'm not going to spoil. You know what I mean. This is so good. Anyway, okay, so... all right, I'm going to go into a new film. So I watched a new film, 2021 film.
Okay.
Which is a new film as far as I'm concerned. And I think it was released really recently. I'm not sure exactly the date of release, because I just saw it on Netflix and I watched it. And that is Yes Day.
Oh, nice.
What did you say, sorry?
I said, oh, nice, because my partner watched this without consulting me. I wanted to watch this, and she watched it without me, so I then couldn't watch it. But it seemed like quite an interesting concept, this.
Well, if you've seen Yes Man, which was the Jim Carrey comedy like 10 years ago, where Jim Carrey decided that he would never say no to anything again, he would just say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Well, take that concept and put it in a film about a family that in order to try and get their kids to respect their parents more, they give them a yes day.
Okay.
It's kind of like a mix between Yes Man and Hall Pass.
Does Zooey Deschanel play a love interest in this one too?
No, Zooey Deschanel is not in it. And actually, I will say, that's actually something I do appreciate with the film. It is a family comedy, but the father does not have a sort of... There's no point in the film where the father has his head turned.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, we're not dealing with Chevy Chase here.
Yeah, we've been beyond the family, the National Lampoon's Vacation era of family comedies here.
Yeah, but I will say it's funny that I've started in this sort of jovial, funny mood with this because I really didn't like this film.
Anyway, let's get serious for a minute. This movie sucked.
Yeah. Like it really did suck, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm sure, obviously, any film like this, Konrad, you know me. I love a family film. I love
this
like
seems
sort of
right up your alley.
I love a warm family film. It's just. It was an hour and 26 minutes, and they were squeezing every last minute out that they could. Like it was too much concept, not enough writing. Like the first 5 minutes of the film, we have a little 4-year-old girl twerking, and while the mother's saying, "Don't twerk," and then they're all twerking. I'm like, what is this like? It strikes me with like, okay, just to add to that point, so twerking, and then like 5 minutes later again. We have the mother going for a job interview, and then she says, "Oh, I really want to work here. I'm coming back from having kids," and and the woman's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I really would like to hire you, really good, but I want a millennial intern who I can just make work till 10 p.m. Right?"
Did she literally say that?
Yeah. I want a millennial intern who they can get to work till 10 p.m. without questioning me while they're eating their avocado toast or something like that, right? And I thought to myself, I don't understand what it is with Hollywood film script writers. They don't understand what a millennial is. The woman who was saying this was 35 years old.
Yeah, you're a millennial.
Yeah, you are a millennial.
Yeah.
And I'm just
millennials are old now, guys. All right, I know it's hard to accept, but we are admittedly, I am on the older end of millennial, but unfortunately, we have been supplanted by a younger generation, and I appreciate that scriptwriters don't understand what that generation's into yet.
Yeah.
They're into TikTok and phone sex or something. I don't know, but
yeah. So I thought, like, what is with this film? Like, this is like it was written 5 years ago with the twerking and the millennial bashing, and then it's like it took this long to get made, you know. But there's a fair bit of stuff. Like, it's a very paint by numbers thing.
Yeah.
Like you can see every beat of it coming. You can see the moment where it's about the main relationship between Jennifer Garner, who plays the mother, and the eldest daughter, who's played by Jenna Ortega. And I'm not even gonna look her up, right? But I'm telling you now, she starred in a Disney film, a Disney show. She's literally like a Selena Gomez, a Miley Cyrus. I'm telling you right now, I don't even have to look it up. She was in a Disney TV show. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I'll interject for 1 second here to confirm that Anthony is indeed correct. She was in multiple Disney things.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I'm not going to say what she's in, but you'll be seeing her again soon if you carry on your MCU rewatch.
Oh, interesting.
Keep an eye out for her. Although she'll probably be like, how old is she in this? She's like 16 or something.
14 in this.
Okay, so
I don't know what age she is in real life, but she'll
be like a baby when you see you see her in something.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so basically the idea is that the parents decide to give their children a yes day, which they have to say yes to anything their children ask them to do.
Sure.
Now, that seems like a pretty easy concept to get your head around as a screenwriter. Okay. Yeah. But from the very start of this yes day, although I will say before we start, they get the idea of doing a yes day from a counselor / PE coach who randomly shows up to them at a parent-teacher meeting night in the cafeteria. This bit was funny. He showed up in the cafeteria having made a whole tray of tater tots, and he's like, he was almost like a spirit guide, but he just like showed up. He's like, want some tater tots? You know, that was pretty funny, I will say. And okay. He sort of came back throughout the film, and he was a good part. I did enjoy him, but basically they set it up. But from the very beginning, The whole point is like the parents do what the kids want. Like the kids say, "We'll do this," and can we do this? Or you ask you a question, and they say yes. Now, from the beginning, the mother's up first. The mother starts throwing bubbles around the room or glitter around the room, and I'm like, "Hang on, is this yes day or is this mother acts like a child day? Like, what's happening here?" What? She's just like all of a sudden like, "I'm gonna be fun." It's like, no. The children probably don't want you to be this nutcase.
Yeah.
You have to do what they want to do. Okay, so that's they couldn't get the rules right, and here's another example of how they couldn't get their own rules carefully meshed in. Now you know me, Konrad. I'm always trying to spot little things going on. I've always got my theories going on, just like you do. I consider myself quite a smart movie watcher. So whenever there was a whole bet going on between the oldest girl, the teenage daughter, and Jennifer Garner. There was a bet going on that she wanted to go to this. Here's another thing. Reason why it was written 5 years ago. She wanted to go to a music festival called Fleek Fest. So
nailed it.
Nailed it, right? So she was going to go to this music festival, and she wanted to go with her friends, but the mum was like, "No, you're not going without me." So then the bet was that if the mother said no at any point during the day, that then the girl could go on her own. But if the mother didn't say no at all, then the mother would go with her, right? See the bet? That's the bet, right? So I was dismayed to find out that... No, actually, no, I'm setting up wrong. I had my antenna were out, and I was searching for any time the mother was going to say no. I thought there was going to be some real nuance to this, right? Because obviously we know these scriptwriters, they're going to be consistent. They were having a great time. The whole time it was built up. The daughter was asking her random questions all the time, like, how are you feeling today? Oh, or whatever. Just random questions she could possibly get a no to, trying to catch her mother out, right?
Okay.
As the film goes on, as you can imagine, the kids and the mum and the dad start getting on very well together. Before the eventual will they, won't they won't, then they will. So they're sitting at a theme park. They're having a great time. It's great. It's great to be in this family. The daughter says to the mum, "Do you want some popcorn?" The mum says, "No, thanks." Straight away, I'm thinking, well, there it is. She said no.
I feel like that's not.
No. The way it was built, she was trying to catch her out to have her say no.
Okay.
All film, she was asking her random questions, trying to get her to say no.
That's so weird, though. That's like not in the spirit of this concept at all, though. Like that, so she's literally not allowed to say the word no in terms.
No. This is my point. No, I think you're taking the opposite thing I'm saying here. That was meaningless.
Oh, okay, good.
That was meaningless. Now, for me, I was like, "What are you doing here, guys? Like, just have her say I'm good." Like. The daughter's been trying to catch her out the whole film to say the word no, and then when she finally says it, it's just ignored.
That sounds like infuriating, to be honest.
I didn't like it at all. It was a confusing setup, to be completely honest with you. There's also a couple of weird moments in the film where characters just randomly looked at the camera.
Love a fourth wall break. Absolutely love a fourth wall break.
It only happened once or twice, and it was so strange. Once with that guru guy, which kind of made sense, I suppose. But the first one was like they were playing some weird game where they had to throw paintball beanbags at each other or something. And like the little kid, the boy in the family, looked at the camera and was just like, I don't know, he said some quote from a war film or something, and he just looked. There was no other reference to looking at the camera the whole time. He just looks at the camera, says something, and then runs off. I'm like, what's going on here?
That is such a dangerous thing to do in your movie. Is be like, we're going to break the fourth wall. It's like, listen, unless your name is fucking Bugs Bunny, you're not allowed to just suddenly break the fourth wall without very clearly establishing that that's the kind of movie you're making. Like, it works in farcical comedies, but it doesn't sound like this is that.
No, exactly. Also, I said it's very paint by numbers, and it's not trying anything new. It's very, very by the book. So, because the whole film doesn't have anything groundbreaking, nothing innovative, it's very paint by numbers, it really draws into question this aspect of it, which I'm going to mention. Because I'm thinking to myself, is this actually a deviation from the norm? Or is this just lazy writing and they have no idea what they're doing? I'm not sure. We'll see. You tell me what you think.
I mean, it sounds like lazy writing for going into this.
So the son character,
okay,
they set up that the son isn't very good at school.
Okay.
And he has to have help with his homework, and he's just not a bright kid. right? It seems like that. They set that up with him because like the whole idea is like you do all your homework, and then like you can get a yes day. Okay. Weirdly, in the second half of the film, they decide for the big end of the thing they're going to have a big nerd party, and apparently their son is a real big nerd who loves science. And like they're like mixing chemicals, and like they've got the catalyst, and
nerd parties where we mix chemicals and do other nerd stuff.
But like it all came from the one joke of let's have them walking around with a beaker full of chemicals and pretend like these 12-year-olds are at a party with cocktails. That's what it was basically. But I thought to myself, like, okay, is he the stupid kid who can't pass class, or is he the nerd? And I thought to myself, whoa, maybe they're doing this really cool thing. Like, you don't have to be smart to like science, which is cool.
Yeah.
But then I look at the rest of the film and I'm like, I don't know if they're doing that.
Does that kid at any point solve a conundrum by remembering something to do with science that would make his parents realise that he's not actually stupid? He's just, he just needs more encouragement or something along those lines.
No.
Okay, so it's a completely pointless character point that is never mentioned.
He served the idea that they had of having literally, right? They literally had the idea. One, they were going to make a load of foam in the house because oh my god, it's a catastrophe. They have to clean it up. And two, they wanted little kids who were like 11 years old walking around holding flasks full of colourful things that were science experiments but looked like cocktails at a party.
Okay, I mean that is adorable, but at the same time, like that doesn't sound like a nerd party. You still need to have the party part of that. Like it's not just, you can't just be like, you're gonna have punch and hang out with your friends, I guess, and rather than watching superhero movies or whatever it is nerdy kids do these days.
Yeah, so there we go. That's the film. I wasn't a big fan of it, I'm completely honest with you, but there are moments, a couple of moments which made me laugh. Like there was a particular moment with a paramedic that made me laugh, and I'll not say any more because I don't want to ruin one of the only funny jokes in the whole thing. But paramedic played by Fortune Feimster. And
I was going to suggest Rob Riggle as a potential character. This feels like the kind of movie that he would turn up as a character actor in, but perhaps not.
It's just very good. Like it's that character is good. There's a couple of good characters, but none of them are the main characters, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's not exactly a resounding endorsement, and unfortunately, I'm not going to spend too long on this next one because I didn't like this one either. But I'm going to make a whistle-stop tour at 2019's Pet Sematary. I guess it's a remake of the early 90s adaptation of the Stephen King book, and to be honest, this one sits pretty much like exactly where you'd expect it to in the pantheon of Stephen King horror adaptations, which is to say they're pretty much all bad apart from The Shining. It tells the story of a family that moved to like a rural town so their doctor dad can spend more time with the family, but unbeknownst to them, there is a haunted kind of in the original it's like an Indian burial ground or Native American burial ground, referred to as an Indian burial ground in the source material. I didn't get the sense that that's what it was in this. I think they were trying to kind of get away from that to a certain extent, but still, there's some tainted earth. When you bury things there, they come back to life, but not as you would hope them to. Their cat is hit by a truck. They bury it. It comes back as a horrible cat that scratches things and hisses at John Lithgow. And then we're off to the races. And basically the plot of this movie is increasingly sentient and large creatures get buried in this cemetery.
They just keep
the course of the movie, they just keep chucking them in, and they keep coming back in worse and worse conditions. And
that's exactly what we didn't want to happen.
Yeah, it goes about as well as you might expect. I do not like the original of this, and I think that this is a worse version of that. It doesn't really do anything particularly interesting. It's a bit of a jump scare fest, which I'm not a massive fan of at the best of times because I just find it a bit lazy. It has John Lithgow, as I said before, that's always something. It's always great to see John Lithgow turning up in something, although it's I don't know how you feel about John Lithgow, but whenever I see him, I find it really hard not to expect him to go into like a Third Rock from the Sun kind of characterization.
Dick.
Yeah, that's what I want from John Lithgow, even if I don't know it.
Well, what about in what's that one with Margot Robbie in it where she plays the Fox News host? Oh, she's aspiring Fox News host. Bombshell.
Yeah.
Jeez, little John Lithgow in that. He's not really the dick. Well, he is the dick, but he's not the dick.
Yeah, not in the lovable way that we'd all hope for John Lithgow. He plays a kind of affable old man in this. Plays the neighbor who gets the immortal line from the original that sometimes dead's better.
Dead's better.
Yeah,
Simpsons
dead's better.
parodied that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it's probably the most memorable line from this. It's a weird thing with Stephen King horror adaptations because they're always memorable and they always have a cool central concept, but the films are almost always trash. It's the same with it. Those movies are all bad, and you know this follows along in those footsteps. It's got some pretty gnarly gore in it, which I was into, but it's not enough to salvage it from what is otherwise a pretty average outing, to be honest. So I'm not really going to spend any more time on it than that, except to say I watched it and it weren't that good.
Fair enough. Okay, so now we're going to go to Anthony's Kids Corner.
Anthony's Kids Corner. Yeah. I hadn't workshopped that jingle, so
yeah. I tried to throw an ending in there, but you jumped in with the trombone. That's okay. That's okay.
We'll figure it out. We'll be better.
I was just gonna go. Yeah.
Is that appropriate for a kid's jingle?
That's I did realize that as I was doing it, but at the same time, it's only not appropriate if you think it's not appropriate.
Wow, that feels like a cop out. But anyway, Karen, tell me what's in your corner this week, Anthony.
Okay, my corner this week is, I don't know why, the other day I just decided to do now this is not the typical thing to do, but I thought I would go for a reverse Ice Age marathon.
Christ, what does that mean? You watch them back to front?
Yeah, so I didn't actually so I never, to be honest with you, I didn't know there was any more than 2 of these, and I've only ever seen one. So the first Ice Age, I think, is a classic. You know, it's a classic children's film.
Yeah. That
was all right. You know, back in the days of Everyone Loves Raymond, we all were thinking of that man. Give him a trunk and some and some tusks.
Those halcyon days of the Ray Romano cult of personality, where like, get that man a fucking animated series because
see the hair that's on his head. See the hair on his head. Put it everywhere and you've got some gold. Right? So that's basically what happened with Ice Age. It was just a perfect storm of Luigi and I can't remember his actual name, but the guy who plays Sid the Sloth plays Luigi in the Super Mario Brothers film.
Super Mario Brothers. John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was Sid the Sloth. That's I love that. That's what you associate John Leguizamo with as well. Like, all the movies really that he's been in, it's Luigi in the Super Mario Brothers movie.
It's Luigi and Ice Age. That's what I remember him for.
Not Romeo and Juliet. Not the Pest.
No, okay. Romeo and Juliet I was made to watch in secondary school. So to be honest with you, everyone always goes on. See what Baz Luhrmann did. It was unbelievable. I'm like, come on. I had to study.
They were all talking in really funny English. I didn't understand it at all, to be honest.
I didn't understand a word they said. But so Ice Age. We watched. Now let me try and get this right here because I don't actually know the order here. We went backwards. So we watched Ice Age Collision Course, and I watched it, and there was like mystical space stones that were magnetic,
sure,
and they like were trying to divert an asteroid from hitting the planet with these magnetic stones, and I thought,
all right, so that series has jumped the shark at some point.
Yeah, this series like went jumped the shark at some point. And I was like, right, I was seeing that, I was like, God, okay, I've got to see more, and so I watched it. Like they had these, like they went and I got to say, if you are going to have a character who's like in tune with reality, just like they do in Zootopia, it's got to be a llama. The llama is known to be the most zen of all characters. So basically, this I'm not going to go through the film. That's that. They jumped the shark. Then we watched the next one.
Okay.
Right. And which was actually the 4th. So it's not the next one. It's the previous one. We went backwards. And this one was even funnier because it's called Ice Age Continental Drift, and they get knocked off onto, what do you call it, like when a bit of ice breaks away? Is there a name for that?
Probably, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Like marine biologists and I don't know what kind of scientist investigates like glaciers, but if you're into glaciers, get in touch with the show.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, they go off onto this like broken off piece of ice.
Yeah.
it's called continental drift. After
Do
all.
they eat one another like to survive?
No, but it's even better. They all go out onto this ice thing, right?
Okay.
And they meet up with I'm pretty sure it's a chimpanzee, as well as his crew, because they're pirates, and they meet up with a chimpanzee pirate who has it's his own boat, which is just like a broken off piece of ice with a mast.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
And they have like a raccoon or a badger. I think it's a badger actually.
Okay.
Who runs up the mast, hangs on, and he's the flag. He's got the Jolly Roger on his back.
Right. Okay.
Peter
What the fuck are they doing in the in like the North Atlantic Sea or wherever they are, the Arctic Sea?
Listen, this is Ice Age. This is, you're in one. Like, this is basically. I wanted to get a Captain Jack Sparrow quote in. No, actually, no, that's not Captain Jack Sparrow. That's your fella.
Orlando Bloom.
No, the actual good actor in it. Who's
what's his name?
Jeffrey Rush.
Jeffrey Rush. Yeah,
you're in one. But basically, okay, that was that one. Number 4. So there was pirate chimpanzees going on. So if you want to check that out, you can check it out.
Yeah.
I was trying to see where it all went wrong for the Ice Age series.
This is like if they made like 5 Homeward Bound movies. Like, the first one is just about 2 dogs and a cat getting home after being left like abandoned in a national park, and by the 5th movie they're like fighting space aliens. That's what I'm expecting this Ice Age retrospective to turn into.
Yeah, well, there was at least 2 Homeward Bound movies. I know that for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. Which, honestly, those owners, if they lost them again after that, it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, so I don't know. I never watched. The first one's good enough for me. Like, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm coming, Peter, and I love you. So, Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaurs is the 3rd one.
Hold on.
So
didn't the Ice Age come after the dinosaurs?
Yeah, so they came back. The dinosaurs came back.
Fine.
Nothing more to say there. Just, and
chronologically, it left a lot to be desired. Like, they clearly didn't have a firm grasp on their eras.
Funny thing, I will say, actually, in the 5th one, which I know we're all over the place here. I'll not say anything more because I watched the 3 and then I watched the first one. I didn't actually watch the second one again. I don't know why I skipped it.
That might have been the best one.
It could have been. That's the thing. But we'll never know. So there was in the 5th one, I will say, the first one we watched. Who's the American Brian Cox? You know Brian Cox, the 7 Wonders of the Universe guy?
Yes.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh.
So, yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson
I was trying to think of, like, Americans called Brian Cox then. Like, okay, I understand how you arrived at Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah. I'm not thinking of Denim Dan.
Drunk enough to kick your ass.
Yeah. But basically, Neil deGrasse Tyson plays like a weasel who's like commentating on the space and all the planets and everything.
Sure.
And at the very end, whenever they eventually divert the meteor, it's going to hit Earth. They divert the meteor. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's got a different name, but it's Neil deGrasse Weasel or something. He says it is something. It is. Honestly, I'm not even joking. It's something like that. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let me have a look. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil DeBuck Weasel. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So they made a couple of changes to the name, but not many.
So the film. I love a film that ends with someone walking out. It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show. Someone walks out and gives like a narration to the camera, right? So he comes out as a weasel and is like, billions of years ago, Mars used to look just like Earth, and it was covered in flora and fauna. Well, maybe not. Whichever one's plants and water. He's like, look just like Earth, and then he's like, but scientists have no idea what happened. And then the meteor that they just diverted from Earth smacks into it, and it turns into Mars, like as we know it.
Classic.
And I thought, geez, this whole film was conceived on that joke. Like, but yeah, Ice Age Reverse Marathon. Put it in the calendar for next year. It is an annual event from now on.
Jesus, that's a lot of Ice Age.
Yeah. Well, I only watched 4 of them, but
I mean, that's enough, frankly, but that's good. I'm glad that was a lovely first trip to Anthony's Kids Corner. Hopefully, we'll come back again when you do a retrospective of Despicable Me and all the Minions movies. I
refuse to let my son watch the Minions movies.
They're so bad. They're so bad.
When middle-aged women like the memes of a children's film, I sort of try to avoid that.
Yeah, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. Okay, so I actually did. I'm only going to talk about the first one in this series, but I actually did something similar to you, where I watched a bunch of films, and to round us off for the day here, and this is the original. It's one I hadn't seen before, and I found out this week that apparently my partner is super into these movies, and that is 1968's Planet of the Apes, which it stars Charlton Heston. It's a good old-fashioned rip-roaring adventure movie. It's directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, who did like Patton and Papillon. So he's got an adventure movie in him, and it's It is basically what you expect a Planet of the Apes movie to be, which is obviously that a group of astronauts, they're on like some kind of interstellar mission. They're already actually. I'll say this for Planet of the Apes. It opens with Charlton Heston kind of basically expositing to the audience about how everyone that they know is already dead, because they've only been gone for I think it's like 6 months, but in Earth time like 700 years have passed, and he doesn't seem overly concerned about that fact. Like I feel like I would be slightly upset at the fact that everyone I know and love is long dead.
Well, I love that. Is he doing it in like as far as I remember, is it like a captain's log? Is it like a captain's
he's basically
log?
doing like a captain's log while playing.
Well, they're all gone, Charlton. They're all.
Yeah, who are you giving this to? Like no one even knows that NASA existed anymore. Like it's faded into memory, like the One Ring. It's passed into legend. But yeah, so obviously they go through a wormhole. They crash on what seems to be a foreign or an alien planet ruled by rambunctious apes who hunt humans for sport, and he's taken prisoner. His other crewmates are killed or lobotomized, and then he must orchestrate an escape, aided by 2 scientists who take an interest in Bright Eyes and his ability to speak.
Dr. Zayas. Dr. Zayas.
This is a classic example of a movie that has been ruined for me by The Simpsons. Because as soon as I saw this, I was like, The Simpsons absolutely nailed this. Could I play the piano anymore? I want that Planet of the Apes musical so badly. This movie it basically shouldn't work. I don't think this movie, because it's basically just Charlton Heston overacting constantly for like an hour and a half. But gosh darn it, I really enjoyed it. And I think there's some stuff in the script that is actually quite good. Like I think as a means of sort of critiquing human society by like kind of taking a step back from it and positioning humans as the inferior species and these apes as the dominant species. It's actually quite clever. This idea of like. It doesn't. The messages can be accepted more readily because it's not humans who are doing it. I will say that the critiques are about as broad as they come. It's things like maybe don't hunt for sport, and religious fundamentalism is kind of bad, and maybe don't be anti-science. But it's still, I enjoyed it, and Dr. Zayas as the kind of head of the church and also the head of the scientific department is a kind of worryingly prescient depiction of where society would go in terms of its relationship with science and facts.
It's also an area which the South Park explores somewhat as well. The idea of future science being looked at like religious cults.
Yeah, like
Mr. Garrison's role in that is very funny, I might add.
I don't think I ever actually got up to that stuff in South Park, to be honest.
Oh, no, it's only 1 or 2 episodes, but they do like they go into the future, and like literally there's different cults of science that are like just they take over the religions.
Oh, okay.
And Dr. Garrison is one of like the head of the science. I can't remember which head of science he is, but he's basically slave,
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think I might even go back to 1984. That this idea of like calling something science, but it's actually just this religious cult basically. But that is essentially what Dr. Zayas runs here. But yeah, it's really good fun. A lot of Charlton Heston booty in this. He spends a lot of time pretty much naked, and there is the middle of this film is kind of dominated by essentially a courtroom drama where Charlton Heston's character Bright Eyes has to like defend himself as they're basically saying he should be lobotomized because he's he's been created by these two scientists played by Roddy McDowall and Kim Hunter, called Cornelius and Zira, and there's a bit in this sequence where there's a lot of back and forth. It goes on for about 25 minutes, and they there's kind of ultimate conflict in this courtroom sequence. They roar something across at the three judges, who are all orangutans, who are the kind of religious fundamentalists disguised as scientists. And they literally do the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil thing with their hands in a front-on shot, and it's one of the dumbest things. I couldn't believe they'd done it. I had to rewind it and go and watch it again, but it's fantastic. And the movie.
Well, 1968 would it's so obvious now, but would people? It's in the zeitgeist now. Was it as in the zeitgeist in 1968, or could they get away with being that obvious?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know where that even comes from originally, to be honest, the see no evil thing. But yeah, I mean, I found it really funny, and there's lots of little jokes like that throughout it. Charlton Heston gets some great lines. He gets to roar, get your damn hands off me, you dirty ape, and stuff. And it's just he's so hammy. And I have to say as well, I don't know whether this would have been considered like a blockbuster, because it was late 60s, so I think the era of really big budget kind of adventure movies was kind of on its arse at that point. It was pre-Jaws. But this, I won't give away how it ends, but it ends very, very bleakly, which for, you couldn't really get away with that in a blockbuster these days. And I kind of loved it. It completely caught me off guard how bleakly it ends. But yeah, so I mean, tonally, it was right up my alley. But yeah, Planet of the Apes, not bad. I also watched all the other ones. I'm not going to talk about them on this, but I watched all the modern ones as well, because they're all on, or most of them are on Disney Plus. None of them held up to this one, though, is what I'll say for this, or for 1968's Planet of the Apes.
Tim Burton's Supreme Edition. All right, we'll not talk about that one at all.
Yeah, no, that was the one I refused to watch, actually. I said, there's no way I'm doing that. We can do the James Franco ones. I don't like the James Franco ones particularly, but I'm not doing the Tim Burton one again. Barry Pepper isn't enough to save those movies.
I would call them the Andy Serkis ones. I like them better when I say that.
Yes, that is true. That's a better way of thinking of them. Yeah, I suppose James Franco's only in the first one, but he alone is enough to ruin a movie for me. I really dislike him as an actor.
Caesar is home. James Franco is very hot and cold for me, to be honest with you. But I love Pineapple Express, to be honest with you. But maybe it's in spite of him.
Yeah, I think there's good stuff in Pineapple Express, but I feel like you could put another actor in his part, and I would like that movie more.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
But yeah, so there we go. Is that you done for the week? I can't remember how many we said you had.
Yeah. No, I just did Yesterday. What was the other one? Ice Age.
Ice Age. So memorable.
Ice Age and Thor.
And Thor, lovely. Okay, well, I think that is going to do it here for us this week on the Best Movie Podcast Ever, which leaves us, as it always does, with only one simple question to answer, and that is, Anthony, what is your favourite movie?
Ice Age Continental Drift.
Great. Chimpanzee Pirates. Mine is Conan the Barbarian. We have got, in exciting news, drum roll please. I'm doing a drum thing here with my hands. Next week we're going to be doing a themed episode because WrestleMania is coming up in 2 weeks' time, I believe.
Yeah, start of April, yeah.
Yeah, start of April. So next week we'll be doing a themed episode on wrestling movies. So join us to check that out. Anthony and I are both, I wouldn't say erstwhile fans of wrestling. We're not actively involved in it as much as we once were.
It's like anything. We go in waves.
Yeah.
It's certain months of the year you'll be really into it, and then other months of the year you'll sort of fade out again. I stay abreast of it without being too deep into it. But yeah, so join us for that. Yeah, thank you for joining us this week. As I said at the beginning of the episode, if you haven't already, please subscribe to us on YouTube at The Culture Cave or on podcasting apps. We are the best movie podcast ever. And yeah, give the show a like, get involved in the comments, let us know what you saw this week and what you thought of the movies that we watched. But we'll see you same time, same place next week. And cut.